We finally got to find out about the brain and reason behind the entire Borderland game, and it wasn't who we thought it was. Season 2 ended with the dreaded Joker card lying on a table in the hospital, and Arisu and Usagi had to go back into the Borderland to complete the last mission and to find out who was behind the entire game. Let's recap all that I watched, break it down, and explain all that there is to the 6 episodes from this final season. Here is Alice in Borderlands Season 3 ending explained. And just so you know, this video will contain spoilers. The final episode opened with the most heartbreaking moment of the entire season, and mind you, Arisu and Usagi were the only familiar faces who returned to the game in this season. Every other person had been to the game at some point in their lives. After surviving the brutal Possible Futures game, the group faced their ultimate test in the exit room. Obviously, all of the games ended with devastation. When Arisu rolled the dice in the final game and got a 7, meaning only 7 players could proceed while 1 had to remain behind, he made the selfless choice to volunteer himself after seeing that Ryuji was going to kill Usagi if he was left alone with her in the game. As the room went dark and Arisu was separated from the others by what seemed like a one-way screen, we watched Usagi cry helplessly as she believed she was losing him forever. But the real gut punch in this season came when Ryuji, who had been manipulated throughout the season into making a deal with the mysterious host, was forced to face his ultimate choice. The deal was simple but horrific: kill Usagi and receive all the answers about the afterlife he desperately sought. As Arisu screamed and cried from his prison, watching Ryuji point the gun at pregnant Usagi, we saw a man torn between his obsession with forbidden knowledge and his remaining humanity. To understand how we reached this devastating moment, we need to go back to the beginning of the season. Arisu had been living peacefully, married to Usagi and working at a grad center, when their lives got shattered by Ryuji's manipulation. Although they had no vivid recollections of the games in seasons 1 and 2, they knew that something connected both of them deeper than the meteorite explosion. Ryuji was a researcher, obsessed with near-death experiences, and had been studying Borderland survivors under the guise of academic research about the Shibuya meteorite incident. But Ryuji had a dark history. He had previously conducted illegal experiments on a student who died during his near-death research, leading to his own car accident and the loss of his legs. Ryuji's recruitment into this new game began when he attended what seemed like a seminar, but turned out to be a deadly game of Old Maid in a Warehouse. The twist of the seminar game was brutal. Drawing the Joker card meant instant electrocution. As contestants died one by one, only Ryuji survived, having witnessed the horrific reality of these new games firsthand. This experience, rather than deterring him, only fueled his obsession with understanding what lay beyond death. The mysterious host who had been orchestrating everything finally revealed himself to Arisu in a tunnel, slipping a Joker card into his pocket. This host had been recruiting vulnerable people at their lowest moments, distributing Joker cards and promising answers to life's deepest questions. Usagi became an unwitting pawn when Ryuji promised her that he could help her with the nightmares about her father that she had been having. The revelation that Usagi was pregnant made Arisu's decision to follow her into this deadly realm even more desperate. Remember Anne in seasons 1 and 2? She helped Arisu piece together the Borderland mystery and administered the drug that would stop Arisu's heart for exactly 2 minutes, allowing him to enter the collective unconsciousness between life and death. He found himself in an empty Borderland, wandering toward Hakawa Shrine. Unlike previous seasons, where players could choose their games, this time, contestants were forced through a series of increasingly brutal games with no option to opt out. Compared to Season 2, the episodes were mostly focused on surviving the final games rather than being in Season 2. The creativity in the creation of each game was as nerve-wracking as the last season, maybe even more. My favorite game was definitely the zombie hunt, where they had to either become a zombie or remain human. From the Sacred Fortunes games to the zombie hunt where Arisu met Rei, who seems to think on the same wavelength as him, each character this season was individually interesting. Throughout the games, we saw glimpses of what made this season different. Contestants choosing to support each other and working in teams despite facing their worst possible futures. Another shocking twist in the final game was when Arisu and Usagi's unborn child was selected as part of the contestants. When Usagi used her unborn child's points to save other players, or when Yuna sacrificed her points to save Usagi, we witnessed transformation through shared trauma. But it was the final game that broke everyone down to their core. In a computer simulation of the real world, contestants had to navigate rooms showing their deepest desires and worst fears. Tetsu saw futures of drug addiction and imprisonment before his bracelet exploded. Nobu faced his mother's deteriorating health. Each room became a psychological torture chamber, yet the contestants chose to support each other rather than save themselves. Which brings us back to that final, impossible moment. As Ryuji held the gun, trembling trembling with the weight of his choice, we saw 5 seasons of character development come to a head. This man, who had manipulated Usagi, who had made deals with mysterious entities, who had been willing to sacrifice others for knowledge, in the end, couldn't pull the trigger. His humanity, buried under layers of obsession and trauma, finally surfaced when it mattered most. The game's response was unexpected. Because Arisu had entrusted everyone to their futures and shown true leadership, he was granted his own future and cleared the game. But before anyone could celebrate, an earthquake began tearing the simulation apart, buildings collapsing and water rushing in to drown everything. As Arisu tried to help the others survive, the figure everyone thought was the Joker appeared and offered him citizenship in the Borderland. The biggest shock came when this host, whom I even thought was the Joker, revealed he had brought Arisu back purely for entertainment, using Usagi as bait because he knew Arisu wasn't the type to be summoned otherwise. But the revelation that truly shattered everything we thought we knew came next. This man wasn't the real power behind the games. When Arisu cracked the computer screen and began saving his friends from the flood, the false Joker's true nature was exposed. In the real world, as Arisu's 2-minute window began closing, this same host appeared in the hospital room and tried to suffocate him. But Anne could see him, and when she reached out to touch him, he disappeared instantly. This moment revealed that the Joker was equally trapped between worlds, just like the players, not the mastermind everyone believed him to be. Back in the Borderland, as Arisu floated to the surface after nearly drowning while trying to save Usagi, the false Joker appeared one final time, pointing a gun and demanding Arisu stay in the game forever. But when he tried to shoot, the gun failed. Instead, another man emerged from the shadows and shot the false Joker dead. This new man is the watchman who guards the gates of death and delivers the season's most profound revelation. He challenged Arisu to a final card game to reveal the truth about the Joker. When both cards turned out to be Jokers, the watchman explained that the Joker isn't a person at all, but a concept that fills the gap between life and death. The man everyone thought was orchestrating the games was just another player, trapped in his own obsession with power and control. The watchman offered Arisu the ultimate choice: embrace death's natural order or return to life with all its pain and trials. The path of death led to acceptance of the universe's natural end, while life meant enduring countless trials and suffering. But when Arisu heard Usagi's voice calling from the flood that led to life, he made his choice without hesitation. The final confrontation in the flooding simulation brought everything full circle. When Arisu spotted Ryuji dragging unconscious Usagi toward the vortex of death, we saw the totality of Ryuji's character. Despite everything, his manipulation, his deals with dark entities, his obsession with forbidden knowledge, when Arisu begged him to save Usagi, Ryuji's humanity won out. He dragged her back to Arisu and surrendered himself to the death vortex, finally finding peace and redemption rather than answers. This means that the game's host would have snaked Ryuji if he really chose to kill Usagi. Usagi finally encountered her father one last time at the cliff where he had died. Instead of taking her to her death, he spun her around, told her he wanted her to be happy, and led her away from the edge. This moment provided closure for her trauma while reinforcing the season's central theme: the dead want the living to choose life and meaning over despair and isolation. When Arisu finally awakened in the real world after exactly 2 minutes, he found chaos in the hospital room from his brief struggle with the false Joker. But Usagi had also awakened, hungry and alive, carrying their child safely. The cruel irony of all is that Ryuji, who had sought answers about death throughout the season, didn't survive to see the real world again. He had found his answers in the ultimate sacrifice, choosing love over obsession. It made sense that each surviving contestant found new meanings in their lives through their shared experience. Nobu graduated and maintained his connection with his mother. Yuna found love and wanted to honor her brother's memory. Rei secured her dream job creating anime. Most significantly, Arisu became a therapist helping other Borderlands survivors, including familiar faces like Chishiya and Akana from the previous seasons. The season's message emerged clearly. The time spent between life and death wasn't about winning games or solving mysteries, but about helping people find reasons to continue living. Each survivor had been transformed not by conquering death, but by choosing life despite having seen their worst possible futures. The games had forced them to confront their deepest fears and desires, ultimately helping them understand what they truly valued. And to this point, even though I don't think there will be another season, the final shot of a waiter whose name tag read Alice, which I think means that the cycle might begin again, with new players entering the space between life and death. Although I thought Season 3 was an ideal ending for the entire movie, the possibility of a new show with the actual Alice seems like it would come in with fresh ideas. So there you have it, Alice in Borderlands Season 3 ending explained.